Hello, everyone. My name is Michael. Thank you so much for joining me in today's Tech Talk. I am a director of product management here at OpsRamp, focusing specifically on observability. And here today, I'm looking to talk to you guys about a concept near and dear to myself, observability, what it means for you, why you should care, and in the end, how does it really drive better team efficiency in a multi-cloud environment? The name of this talk is always available, and I think this is going to be a key thing you'll hear throughout this call, is that the purpose of observability is to lead to more available systems and applications, which result in better business outcomes for you. Let's kick things off. We'll dive into the slides here, and I'll talk through some key pieces. So the first thing in observability, and what I really want to set the context is, what is really the problem space? What are the problems to solve in this area? It's easy to get muddled with solutions. Everyone's talking about metrics, traces, and loggings, but at the end of the day, what does it mean to you as an organization, and what can you expect to receive and from a problem perspective from observability? The first one that really observability is addressing is this lack of visibility into multi-cloud and hybrid environments. This is a challenge for many reasons. One, multi-cloud offers an opportunity to both scale application deployments. It offers an opportunity to make application deployments more horizontally available and more resilient to change, but also it introduces this new skill gap for managing different environments and different infrastructure components and elements. So from a monitoring and observability perspective, it kind of poses this question: well, what can go wrong, and where do I start looking? So observability kind of lends itself to solving this problem. The second one, it is kind of a derivative of the first one, but because of the distribution of infrastructure, the ability to keep a service SLO or service level objective is sometimes put at odds, because to really understand an application that's running on multi-cloud environments is a very tricky task. And this is one of the key problems that even a lot of observability platforms looking to address today. Third, and moreover, again, kind of hinting to that first one, but there's definitely a skill gap. If we look at why are people moving to these multi-cloud environments and starting to adopt technologies like Kubernetes, containerization, microservices, serverless architectures, they're really trying to make their applications more fault tolerant, more resilient to change. At the end of the day, obviously trying to make them more available and available for end users to perform tasks the business wants them to. But as a result of that, there's going to be a disparity in skills, right? If you have teams that are not used to managing Kubernetes infrastructure, or they're not used to troubleshooting a production cluster, there's always going to be a bit of a skill gap needed to manage that kind of environment. So this is where proper tooling and observability can help a lot. And then lastly, I think this is one of the key ones that I want to talk about today, but this team efficiency problem. So how do you effectively triage and troubleshoot incidents across a multi-cloud environment, especially one that's running serverless and microservices? There may be multiple teams involved. You may have a team that's focused on the data center elements of networking, then how it converts to the cloud side. So you have this team collaboration process that needs to be really thought through. And in general, when you're working on a brand new environment architecture, there's going to be new precedents that you're not used to when it comes to troubleshooting. They're going to take some time to get used to. So these are some of the key problems to solve, and we'll talk a little bit more about these in further slides. And a next piece is who should care about observability. You kind of understand the high-level problems, but who in the organization should care? And I have a strong belief that in a IT or DevOps organization, observability is a problem for every level of the management chain. At the highest level, exec CTO, one of the key problems is that team efficiency problem, like we talked about earlier. How efficient are my teams at really getting an incident resolved? Do they have the right knowledge in place? As a result of troubleshooting, are we still keeping these customer committed service level agreements? And as a result, how are my SLOs and error budgets being impacted? And in high level, are we really organizing for success? If we're not adopting these principles of observability, how can we make sure as we digitize our business, we have the right level of visibility in these key applications? At one level below, we really think about that middle management, the IT and DevOps manager. What do they really care about? It's that team empowerment. Are my teams empowered with the right technology and at the right time so that we can solve those critical incidents and issues, but also drive innovation that aligns with our business goals, right? If there is a huge initiative to kind of move to multi-cloud because you see the benefits of reducing the CapEx and need to manage your own infrastructure, well, this is a huge reason to adopt observability, because it helps move the business forward and get visibility to the applications before things go wrong. And at the practitioner level, right? This is your DevOps engineers, SREs, network engineers. And this always comes down to visibility and competence, right? Do I have visibility in my apps so that when something goes wrong, I know where to troubleshoot and what could have gone wrong? And also when I'm deploying applications into production, do I have confidence that I have the right tooling in place to catch something before an end user is impacted or potentially predict a failure, right? that's kind of where observability really helps out, and definitely at that practitioner level as well. So if we kind of recap, what is true observability? And this is really why I want to cut through some of the buzz in the industry and really talk about what you can really expect to get out of it. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of articles saying that observability is just metric, traces, and log. And once you add those to your application stack, you have observability, you achieve observability. And I don't want to discount those technologies. They are meaningful and they do drive value, but it's not value in its own regards. It's value because it's really trying to solve some key problem and drive a key business decisions. So the first one, and I really want to talk about this, is what you could expect from observability, and if the principles and promises it entails, but is a holistic visibility from end user experience to underlying infrastructure and supporting applications. So what this means is that you can understand from the end user side how they're transacting on your web services, to the applications, the infrastructure, the middleware that's actually supporting it and driving that. So when a team is troubleshooting or they're looking to do some sort of remediation actions, they know where to start and what could be impacted as a result of change. The second one is, I think, one that's not talked about enough, but as a result of this huge convergence of new technologies, such as Kubernetes into production environments, it's sometimes very difficult to know what are the true running conditions, the baseline of applications in production. And if you don't understand it, it's really hard to know what is the true health of my environment. Can I accurately say that users are getting a certain level of service from my application, right? What is the time a user takes to transact from page click to page load? Things that really are critical for key business transactions, especially in the e-commerce space. So that's a key outcome to look for. And then lastly, and probably one that I focus on a lot, but I think really what observability brings is trust. Trust and the ability to move fast, innovate, and fail fast, moreover, but in the end, drive value for customers, knowing you can resolve issues quickly with little impact to the core business streams. Traditionally, I feel like it's been a bit of an issue to adopt some of these technologies like Kubernetes and serverless frameworks because there's always a bit of a risk, right? How do I know that it's not going to cause a key production application to go down? How do I know that my key business streams can rely on this, right? These are new technologies. Yes, the promise is great, but is it something I can really afford the risk on? And I think observability really helps mitigate that risk and allow you to trust that where you're going is going to be handled. If should something happen in production, you can go resolve that issue quickly. Those are some of the key outcomes I wanted to kind of mention as a result of observability. There are more that you may experience, but from my perspective and talking with many users in this space, both from the exec level, mid management, and practitioner level, these are the ones that always end up reigning true. And like I mentioned earlier, it's easy to get carried away with the technology, in the space because they are flashy. You can get a lot of promise, but when I'm looking and then evaluating and talking to users, this is really what it comes down to, is the three core tenets here. What can I really expect here? Let's get down to the nitty gritty on what the end result is. What's the net? So UI UX, this may be something you were expecting, but when I think of UI UX, it's not just a product design, user interface, user experience, but it's really the overall transaction user has on a web application, right? Are they experiencing the app in such a way that's conducive to your end business, right? Is your bottom line and top line being managed correctly with the proper UI UX? This is something I think that observability really helps with, is understanding how a UI UX can impact end user, right? If your UI UX has a 2-second load time or over 2-second load time, that has a key correlation with conversion rates from a customer that's on your site to customer leaving your site. And so this is one of the key efficiencies that observability can bring. When we look at modern team structures and organization alignment, we see that there's definitely still this split from, you have your classic IT, you're working on, deployment of servers, managing infrastructure, making sure that VMs are provisioned to the proper teams and application developers. You have your DevOps teams, you are working on new principles. You have SREs that are kind of enforcing site reliability. Then you have your developers, right? And each one of these teams offers their own set of critical information in a troubleshooting flow or needs to communicate on a very regular basis to ensure that business continuity is there. When you have observability in place, it allows for easier communication of key application health, how an application is being run, if there's certain requests, what's the request speed, and all these key decisions can be made based off observability. So this is also another key one to think of when you're looking to implement observability for your organization. Deployment. Can you trust that when you press deploy, your developers merge the code into production, that you have the proper systems in place to catch an issue when it goes wrong, whether it's on the application layer, whether it's on the infrastructure layer, whether it's on the networking layer. Each one of those pieces, plays a role in maintaining the availability of an application, which results into the ability of that application to deliver an experience for an end user. So having proper observability in place allows you to trust that deployments will go correctly and you have the proper tools in place should they not. Troubleshooting or remediation. Modern troubleshooting is not just a one-team effort, or it's not just a one-person effort for that regards. Troubleshooting or remediation for many modern workloads is a multi-team effort. It requires knowledge base from many different teams, it may span different organizations, but the end result is the ability to get an incident resolved as fast as possible so that end users aren't impacted. So I think when I think of observability, I think it actually creates a opportunity for teams to share a similar outcome, which is reducing user downtime and making sure service SLAs are maintained. And lastly is team alignment. Again, very important when it comes to modern applications architectures is making sure everyone understands what is actually occurring in production, right? How does my team contribute to the overall availability of this service and application? How do I ensure that I have proper visibility into that? And so if my teams have a single place they can look to ensure that, okay, I understand how my team is contributing to the overall availability of this application, then I know that we are all working to that common goal, which is again the availability of that service. These are the key efficiencies that I see observability really bringing to a multi-cloud environment, and in general, into a hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, what you can kind of look to gain from an efficiency perspective. So let's talk a little bit about observability in action. Obviously, I'm talking from an OpsRamp perspective. We're definitely big on the observability space. There's the first problem, which is let's call it the coverage and breadth problem. So we think of this as a ability for us to centralize data from many teams and many sources into one platform. So the more data we can get from different applications, different environments, different services, the better, right? Again, going back to that team alignment on troubleshooting and remediation, the more centralized troubleshooting is, the better it is for overall mean time to detect and repair. And so we have a really nice onboarding wizard that allows you to bring data in from your OpenShift clusters, your Linux servers, your Azure resources, your Google Cloud, Prometheus metrics, basically any source that you can think of within the modern application stack, we can bring into the platform to drive that, again, that visibility is required from both a high-level exec perspective down to that practitioner level to ensure you have a proper availability monitoring in place. The second is dashboards. And I love talking about dashboards because, I think there's a bit of a misnomer in dashboards that they're just some high-level way to visualize information, but I think that's a bit of a misnomer. I think what they really offer is the ability to kind of have a central source of truth when it comes to troubleshooting. Yes, you may not have every answer in a dashboard, at least you have some key high-level stats that an exec, a mid-level manager, and a practitioner can look at and say, okay, I have an accurate baseline of information about my infrastructure and my applications. So that I know when I first come here, I have a sense of what's going wrong. And so again, the exec can look at this and understand. And then lastly, Prometheus. And so I always like to talk about Prometheus. It's definitely a topic that we've been doing a lot of thought or spending a lot of thought on, because Prometheus is something that's in many organizations, whether they know it or not, a developer is most likely running Prometheus to monitor an application, whether it's on their local host, or maybe in production. It kind of comes packaged with many modern application stacks. So it's sometimes just there without even noticing. But that creates both an opportunity and a challenge for many organizations, because the opportunity is, well, it's already being monitored. Why not just centralize that data with everything else? And the problem also is, well, if it is being monitored, how do I ensure that not just the developer, but also the operations team is aware of the health of this application that's being monitored by Prometheus, right? So there's, again, going back to that team alignment on overall health and availability of a particular service. And so OpsRamp allows users to centralize Prometheus metric data into one platform, again, to drive that team alignment and collaboration to share a common outcome and objectives. With that, I want to thank you for your time and hope you learned something meaningful out of this conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or reach us at opsramp.com. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to any further follow-up or questions. Thank you.